Welcome back, once again adventurers, to Let's Play Steins 0. In the last episode, Rintaro's worst fears have been realized, because it seems that Stratfor have finally put their plans into operation. Several of their men have stormed the radio building and have held Suzuha and Mayuri hostage. Of course, Suzuha clearly wasn't going to give up the time machine without a fight, and has managed to give Stratfor a taste of their own medicine. Unfortunately, Mayuri was grazed in the crossfire, but at least she's not hurt too badly, although she will need medical attention. But there is only one of Suzuha and 25 remaining Stratfor soldiers. The worst case scenario, that would be these men taking the time machine. They could turn the word line into something even worse than the one that Suzuha had experienced. Indeed they could. It might become a word line where not only Mayuri's life wasn't safe, but Daru's wasn't either, or anyone else's for that matter. If that was going to happen, she had to make her choice fast. She kept a careful eye on the men, and as soon as she saw an opening, she opened the maintenance hatches by metric lock. She could see part of the engine, which was still giving off a quiet rumble. She turned her gun sights on it. Looks like Suzuha's really willing to go through with this. Of course, it will basically mean that Stratfor won't have a time machine to work with, but then again, it will be putting Suzuha and Mayuri in complete and absolute danger. Fortunately, the unit that created the Kerr black hole still wasn't active. Even if she blew up the machine here, it probably wouldn't cause serious damage to the space-time continuum. As soon as she saw that, she went to pull the trigger. But Mayuri feels otherwise. And that's probably a fatal mistake, and Mayuri's voice stopped her. Of course, that's certainly going to draw the attention of the soldiers. But of course, if she destroys it, then they can't go back to the 27th. But if they leave it here, then it falls into the hands of Stratfor. Mayuri had stopped her once before, and once again, she hesitated for just another instant. On the battlefield, that instant can decide your fate. She took a quick look around again, and then she froze. Understandable. Oh. Mixed in with the men in camo was a girl in a dark motorcycle suit and helmet. Seems like Kagari Shiina is late to the party on this one. Was it Kagari who leaked this place's location to them? Once again, Suzuha Mane, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. She was well aware of Kagari's abilities after their two battles. If she wasn't completely in control of herself, she'd be killed instantly. She talked to herself. How many would she have to take with her in order to give Mayuri a chance to escape? Right now, the only thing she could afford to think about was getting Mayuri back to Rintaro Okabe. But just when she made her decision, she felt Kagari staring at her, or more precisely, the blood dripping down Mayuri's forehead. seems like somebody has pressed the Goku button once again. And as always, they shouldn't have did that. And just after that, Kagari did something she hadn't expected at all.
ママに何をした？
Yeah, the Goku button can be an especially terrifying thing. There was a scream. No, it was the howl of an enraged beast. And then the slaughter began. Yeah. Kagari grabbed the second-in-command's head with her left hand. With her right, she steadied her rifle. After she fired, there was very little left of his head. The rest of him dropped to the ground. She slammed a piece of tattered flesh that had once been a man's head into the ground, and with no warning at all, leapt from one screaming man to another. She fired her gun into every single one of them. Could it be that you mistook her for somebody else, I wonder? She's not on your side, not after what's happened. And you only have yourselves to blame because you pressed the Goku button. And that Goku button for Kagari Shiina is her adopted mother Mayuri. Even when her targets were already soaked in a sea of blood, she kept firing until their limbs were blown apart into unrecognizable rags. Some of them tried shooting her to protect themselves, but no matter where she was struck, Kagari didn't even flinch. When her magazine ran dry, she drew forth long military-style cleavers. Holding one in each hand, she used them and her military combat training to slaughter anyone she saw. Looks like both you and Leskinen did too good a job, Suzuha Mane. The entrails were scattered all over the twilight rooftop, covering her whole body in blood and bits of flesh. And the worst possible scenario. Mayuri is watching all this with tear-filled eyes. Suzuha held Mayuri's head tight to her chest. Mayuri was shaking from fear, but she did as she was told and clamped her hands down over her ears. Even so, she could probably still hear the sounds of ripping flesh and shattering bones. But even with that face mask, she couldn't hesitate. Even she couldn't fail to hear what Kagari was talking about. There is only one person, after all, who would ever call Mayuri Shiina mother. So that face mask isn't really protecting anything at this point. Even Suzuha had gone stone cold in shock. During all her time in combat, she'd never seen a one-sided slaughter such as this. She'd experienced this when they'd fought, but Kagari seemed to feel no fear or pain. She simply focused all her energy on killing her opponent. It was often said that humans unconsciously avoided using all their muscle power to protect their own bodies, but Kagari seemed to lack that capability. Courtesy of a certain professor, I might add. Just now she stabbed a man who turned to run from her in the back. then tossed his huge body to the ground with only a single arm. Then she kicked his stomach from below and ruptured his organs, killing him. A single girl that has obliterated your entire standing army, by the way. Although, of course, once this is all over, something tells me that a huge toll is going to be taken on Kagari at this point. She might be superhuman right now, but once this is all over, yeah. Finally, after several, perhaps a dozen or more, of the men have been killed, what remained of the squad started to scream orders at one another. Kagari, however, knows no fear whatsoever. With terrifying reflexes, he dodged between their sergeant, brutally murdered several more, but the others still have assault rifles. Very good odds, by the way. At last, a hail of gunfire struck her left hand, and the knife she was holding fell to the ground. No, that wasn't it. It wasn't the knife that fell, it was her entire left hand. The shock caused her body to stagger back. Yeah, this is certainly going to take its toll. Someone screamed, in a voice that lacked any of the pride and bravery a soldier is supposed to possess. Several more bullets dug into her body. Parts of the motorcycle suit ripped open and the helmet cracked. Blood that was clearly not her own. That was clearly her own, not that of the men she'd killed, began to pour out. I really need to read the sentences. At last she fell into a pile of corpses. Yes! They must have thought they finally had her. One of the survivors pointed to his gun down to finish her, and just as she was about to pull the trigger, yeah, I bet you're all wishing you knew the cheat codes to Mortal Kombat right now. Because Kagari Shiina sure does. Her bestial roar and the man's terrified scream overlapped in a horrible cacophony. She forced herself to leap up and brought the back of the remaining cleaver down on his arm, knocking him back. An instant later, the knife slit his throat and ended his life. We should have done that a lot sooner. The survivors began to flee in terror. However, and we're back with Rintaro, who is currently unaware of the situation. Good of you to take the advice of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy there, Rintaro. You might want to bring a towel with you, by the way. Unfortunately, there isn't time, and there is plenty to worry about. As before on the Alpha World line, all your hopes are in vain, Rintaro Okabe. You should know this better than most. When I reached the radio building, I realized that many people in the crowd of pedestrians were holding their phones up to the sky. There was evidently no service near the station either, but we can't worry about that right now. I took a moment to catch my breath as I looked up at the radio building. I could hear what sounded like a distant explosion. Close, but that is not explosions, that is gunfire. It wasn't just one. The explosions were coming in a series. Several of the people around me were glancing at their surroundings, confused by these unfamiliar sounds. They're not unfamiliar to us, and then I realized that was gunfire. I remembered the sounds I'd heard during the battle between Cern's rounders and the Russian military. The sounds were coming from the roof of the radio building. Had I not made it in time? Yeah.
Suzuha!
If that wasn't obvious enough, I ran into the radio building. For some reason, the elevators was under maintenance and turned off. I had no choice but to take the stairs. My heart was pounding so fast that I thought it would burst, and I tripped several times due to how tense I was. I stumbled again and again on the stairs. How many times had I come up these stairs feeling like this? Cursing my lack of endurance, I headed for the top floor. Of course, that means we'll have to pass the 8th floor, where Kuretsu Makase died. But this is no time to dwell on the past. When I got to the 7th floor, I ran into someone I'd hoped I wouldn't see. No. My guess that I'd run into them was right. I wish that I wasn't, but... Looks like he got here before us.
Yeah, Rintaro.
We meet at last, once again, Alexis Leskinen. I believe, on that note, this is a good time to end this episode of Let's Play Steins Gate Zero. And when we return, it seems that, once again, Alexis Leskinen has some explaining to do to Rintaro Okabe. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.